Greetings, friends. It's Pat with another fun and fabulous episode of Let's Talk Travel. And I'm predicting that this is going to be one of our most popular episodes ever because I think this is something that everybody who travels at all, we all want to bring home some great vacation pictures. And this evening, we are bringing our own agent, professional photographer Jason Odell, on board to tell us how we can bring home better vacation pictures. And folks, I want to learn along with you because I'm never happy with the pictures I bring home, and I am looking for some tips to do better at that. Before we bring Jason on board, I'm just going to show you, I'm going to run through real fast here some of my favorite photos that he has taken. Now, these are his pro photos with his great camera, but he's going to teach us some of the tricks that help him produce these cameras and how we can do them exactly similar things ourselves. So look at this. That's from Croatia. Another one from these next few are from Croatia, one of my favorite places on the planet. Look at this. Just look at that. And my all-time favorite is this baby sloth clinging to the back of its mother. And with that, folks, you can see that Jason knows what he's doing. I'm going to bring him on. Hey, Jason, how are you?
Oh, Pat, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. It's always a pleasure.
Oh, well, I am delighted. I am so anxious to do this particular episode. Part of that's because I'm going to learn some stuff, I hope. I'm always kind of, I always hesitate to show some of my pictures, and a lot of them just go into the trash because I think, oh, that's just blurry, or that's not it's not in good focus, or it's just not very interesting. So hopefully you're going to help us resolve some of that this evening. And Jason, just to start off, I'm curious, what would you say is a good camera for travel photography? What should I go out and buy to take good pictures when I am traveling?
So that's the worst possible question because there's no right answer.
Wouldn't you
Uh,
know that's
the,
how
the,
I'm going to
the,
start?
the answer, no, it is. I mean, no, and it's a great question because, most of the time, uh, you have to be at a point where you say, okay, what is my intention? Am I trying to go on a vacation and come back with photos, or am I trying going on a trip and do photography? Because if the answer is I just want to have decent vacation photos, honestly, the best thing you can do is just get yourself a better phone, because 99% of the time, a phone, whether it's a Samsung, Google, iPhone. I have an iPhone. I particularly like the iPhone, the Pro models. It'll say iPhone 14 Pro or what, not the gigantic things, but see, it has 3 lenses on here instead of just 1 or 2. So if your camera has more
Three
lenses,
even on my
yeah,
Android here.
there you
Yeah.
go. Exactly. So that gives you some flexibility because it means that the camera can do things with what's called optical zoom. It's like an actual lens rather than trying to stretch the image out. There's a lot of features in your phone that we can talk about in a little bit. Now, if you really want a camera for traveling, typically most people want something smaller and lighter. Because again, you're going to have to carry it with you. It's going to have a lens or more than one lens. You're going to change them. The system that I am recommending right now for travel is the Olympus, aka OM system. They changed their name. They got bought. This is their flagship camera. This is the biggest one that they make. It's called the OM1, but they have smaller ones. My assistant and partner Shayla has an OM5, which is an excellent camera, and it's much smaller than this. This camera weighs about a pound. Okay, it's not huge, it's not heavy, but there's lots of little lenses, and you can get them used for pretty good deals. I like this one for travel just because it's relatively small. It does a lot of stuff, but when you go to a real camera, and this is the problem that people will have, you're not generally going to get out of the camera results that look like what comes out of your phone. And that's because your phone is doing a lot of tricks behind the scenes that the cameras themselves don't do, like processing your images, adding fill light, and doing things. So if you were to just take two pictures side by side, you might think the phone pictures were better.
So it's kind of like photography for dummies. This is a good thing for me, I think.
Now, if you want to have control over settings, and I know you've got some shots that I sent you for certain times a day, and you're wanting to, you know, have creative control over the exposure and get some very different kinds of shots, then yeah, you definitely need to move past phone apps and get something that has actual controls like a camera. But I recommend a small, what's called a mirrorless interchangeable lens camera. The DSLRs that are out there, you can get them for very low prices. They're most, especially used, but they're going to be a lot bigger, a lot heavier, and these are easy to use. These are very easy to use.
And really, when you're going all day long, you don't think a pound plus maybe a couple of lenses. That doesn't sound like so much, but by the end of the day,
Right.
if a pound can begin to feel like 5 or 10.
Well, I'll show you something. One of the things like I like with this little camera because it is small. This lens that's on the camera, which isn't very big, this is an easy walk around camera, especially on a smaller camera body like an OM5. This gives me a range from wide angle to short telephoto. And walking around like Dubrovnik or something like that, I could probably just use this one lens all day.
Wow.
And one of the things I'm very impressed with this system is that you can get single focal length lenses like a portrait lens or just a wide angle. And look how small it is.
Oh.
This is a tiny lens that can do portraits with that nice blurred backgrounds that we like. And it weighs 130 grams, so like a third of a pound or
Wow.
something.
So
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 so there are some options with that particular system. Compare it to my big Nikon camera. That lens that I just held up is the same equivalent as this lens on my Nikon camera.
wow.
So again, I'll just it's kind of
Wow.
a no-brainer. I got to put it there so you can see it. I mean, this is the lens that I can toss in my camera bag and say, you know what? I'll bring it. This is a lens that I say I'm leaving at home because it becomes a boat anchor.
For sure.
So
You
anyway,
might I
that's
would
that's one of
bring.
the things that I recommend. And like I said, there's deals out there on the used camera market. You don't always have to buy everything brand new.
Is there any tip the for used cameras? Is there any, if you said red flag, if one thing that would pop up to you that would put you off of buying a particular one?
I
Anything come to mind?
I just don't typically um I like to buy from reputable places. There's a few online places. They will offer not only a return period if you choose not, if it's not up to the standard you thought. Their ratings for grading the equipment are very stringent. Sometimes things that's listed in quote good condition show up and they look brand new as far as I'm concerned. And then they will usually offer some sort of warranty, like a 60 or 90-day warranty. So there's a couple of reputable online used dealers out there, several that I will shop around for and look for the best price.
Good tips, Jason. Good tips. So that's good. So, question on the top of my mind is just what makes for a good travel photograph or a good image?
I think, well, when I approach traveling, um, it's important to have, first of all, a diversity of images so that not everything is going to be the grandiose scene, right? Not everything. You need to fill in the gaps. And what makes a good picture is composition, subject, and light. That's 99% of everything. If you have, you know,
Composition,
yeah,
sub,
you're finding a subject. This is a picture of this house or this door, rather than here's just a scene of everything. When in doubt, get closer in. Find
Oh,
your subject, say, what is it? And then it's, where do I want to put it in my frame? You have this box, right? And do I want it in the middle? Do I want it off to the side? Wherever. Do I want to make it a vertical? Don't forget you can shoot verticals and horizontals. So all of those things make up a mix. And if you're serious about better photos, think about your trip as going on an assignment. You're still on vacation, but you want to come back to make a picture book or a slideshow or whatever. Not every shot is that, like the mountains here with the glorious sunset. Detail shots, reflections, different kinds of subjects make a huge difference. Yeah, so this was as you might guess, this was in London on my 2019 trip there.
in the
And
tube.
in the tube, I was just using my camera, but because it was a professional camera where I could control the exposure settings, I set it to use a slightly slow shutter speed so that the motion was deliberately blurred when the train was coming. That's how you get that blur. So it conveys motion um, by doing that.
And here's a good example. You were talking about just taking a picture of a small detail.
Yes. Yeah, that's exactly right. So you're going to have different shots that go together, and sometimes it's just close-ups or details. So this is a cool mosaic of the underground symbol right there in London.
Way cool. And I just think let's look. You sent me several photographs here. I love this image. That's so you. I love that.
This was Arrival in Paddington Station, and why not have Paddington Bear in your photo? And I think one of my clients took the photo for me.
I love that. When I saw that, it just makes me smile. And isn't that the kind of thing we want to come home with,
Right.
folks? We want to come home with that picture that we look at, and it's a memory. But it also, if our friends look at it, they're going to smile. What about this one, Jason?
Well, this one's kind of extra funky, extra unique, because this was in Holland, in the Netherlands, and I believe it was at the Keukenhof Gardens during the tulip season. But I used a special kind of camera here, so you can do black and white with anything, and that's a good thing to play around with. Just regular old black and white. You can do it in your phone, you can do it in software, whatever, on your computer. But this one was captured with a camera that was specially converted. It was modified to capture light in the infrared part of the spectrum, so the non-visible spectrum. And that's why all the green tulip and flowers look white. So there's really no real color in this image. So I made it black and white. And that's something I sometimes do on my workshops. I'll bring a camera like that. Ireland is a wonderful place for doing something like that.
Sure, because it's got so much green.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Everything's
and the
green.
Castles and the graveyard, the tombstones just look magnificent that way.
Yeah, another good place to get graveyards and tombstones, folks. And I know, Jason, that we talk about this sometimes is on the one of the Canada, New England kind of cruise things.
Yes.
We're talking about someday, folks. Stay tuned. You might hear about a group about that for photographers one of these days with Jason.
Well, I'll be taking that cruise in October and checking it out. So
yeah, and they're in Boston in particular.
Oh, yes.
At Boston and New York, both, they have incredible graveyards where you could spend a day just taking pictures.
Absolutely.
Graves. It's okay. It's a little weird, but it's the truth. Jason, you've got several photos here that I know came from a group you did that we produced together back a while ago, where you were, and you said Keukenhof Gardens. This was
that was there, yes,
around the Amsterdam area there. Tell us about that image. How did you capture that? How
well, this is funny. Okay, like so when you think about Holland in the Netherlands, you kind of think about tulips and windmills. It's kind of hard not to. This was actually a freestanding, about 3 foot tall flower pot. And so what I did was I just got down on my knees and I framed it so that the windmill there would just be in the background. And this picture illustrates one of my little tips. It's easier to do this with a regular camera, but you can do it with a phone with some tips. Um, the background doesn't have to be in focus for you to know what it is. So the subject here is clearly the tulips. That's what's in focus. But you know you're in Holland because you see that windmill back there. Same thing like if you were to go to Paris. The Eiffel Tower doesn't have to be sharp to you for you to know that it's the Eiffel Tower if it's in the background of your pictures.
So that is really cool. And here's another picture that you've taken of the flowers. Probably
Mhm.
that same trip, I'm
It
guessing.
was. Yeah, this was back in Amsterdam. That's the river there, and the river boats that go along the canal. Um, and again, it sets the place. So again, the background isn't in focus, and that's partly because I'm using a real camera. But again, there's some tricks you can do if you get close to the subject. So you see the flowers, and the background is soft, which means it doesn't distract from the photo, but you still see the elements. There's the trees, the buildings, the canal, boats going by. So if this was all sharp from front to back, it would be so busy that you wouldn't know what to look at when you're looking at the picture.
But here you clearly understand you're taking the flowers are the main focus, but you also get the context of everything.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting. I mean, it just captures your interest and your imagination. You think, wow. As soon as I saw that, I was like, wow. And I knew where it was taken. You didn't have to tell me. This is a shot from that trip when we went to, when we were in Amsterdam a
Yep,
couple of years ago.
that's right.
I was able to tell. It's just really, really
So that
cool.
whole thing about what is your subject, decide what your subject is. Now, this one goes a little bit more to the abstract, but it represents a different kind of shot that would be unique for your photo book or your slide presentation, right? Because here I'm looking down into the canal and seeing all the buildings and houses reflected in that water. So I like doing reflections, and it can be water, it can be in windows, it can be, reflections of the buildings across the street. Anytime there's windows and reflections, I get excited because it's a cool thing to do. And it sets the place, it sets the scene for your photo collection.
That is cool. I saw that image and I thought that is just really, really interesting. And so I think one of the things that gets me is I've got to learn to think more creatively and look at things in it with a different eye, uh, and think about, oh, look at that reflection instead of
Mhm.
looking at taking a shot of the building. Well, I suppose that would be perfectly nice, but it was really interesting because it was the reflection you shot with that image.
Well,
So
I like to do kind of two things when I'm getting ready for a trip. I like to make a list of not just the places that I want to visit, but I want to have a specific list of things for my quote unquote photo book. Even if I never make a book, it doesn't have to be a book, right? But I want to make sure that I get certain photos of certain subjects, like you're going to Paris, you're going to want to get a picture of the Eiffel Tower or whatever you might want, the Arc de Triomphe. Um, but then I also like to have a little list of styles and types of photographs, not necessarily specific subjects, but kinds of subjects. So I will say, don't forget reflections. Don't forget to do, a close-up shot with an out-of-focus background, of something iconic in the background where it's out of focus, but you can still tell what it is, like that windmill. A shot list like that helps keep me, when you're out there, reminding me, oh yeah, I need to try to find some more photos, and for you it might be find the detail shots, go and look for doors and windows or even doorknobs or
yeah.
stuff.
Now, like what is this? I mean, that is just really, really cool. I don't know what it is, but I think, wow, just look. I mean, it's just so interesting. You see all of the geometric shapes, and then you see shadows and windows. What is that?
So this, believe it or not, is if you look up when you're inside the British Museum in London, this is the British Museum in London. And it's this giant atrium right there. And then, you go into those little halls, you can see the sort of the Greek columns there. Um, and I, and it was in color. It wasn't very spectacular. It was just kind of, everything was kind of stonework, kind of yellowish orange. So I made it black and white, which allows it to be about the patterns. And you said it, it's about the geometric shapes and patterns, but it happens to be at the museum. Most of the time you think, I'm in the museum, I'm going to take pictures of the paintings on the wall, or the mummies, or whatever it is that you're there to see. And you do that too. But this is to establish that sense of place.
That's interesting. And don't forget, this one. I go back to that. Don't forget to look up.
Well, this one's kind of silly because you could walk right through that. This is called the vestibule. It's in Diocletian's palace in Split, Croatia. And if you weren't backed up against that wall in the corner, oh, okay, not the corner. It's a round room, Jason. I should remind myself. But if you had to be in that one spot, all the way up against the wall, and then you could see the Venetian tower, which wasn't part of Diocletian's palace, but it was built later, poking through the top of this vestibule.
So that is really cool. So, we need to, I need to let my eyes roam and not just look at the main things. Sometimes start seeing the details surrounding that and start just training my eye and my brain to think about something besides, it's not always about keeping the main thing the main thing.
And sometimes just every now and then turn around, look behind you. There
Yeah.
might be something that, because you're going this way, you don't see the scene that's going behind you. Sometimes I'll be focusing on a landscape, waiting for the sun to set. We're focusing on the mountains or rock formations, whatever. Turn around behind you and see the sky is doing something crazy. So it's like, okay, we got to shoot both ways here. So,
Yeah. And that happened to us. I think it was Montenegro when I was there last year. That was one of the side trips we took while in Croatia. And the guide that we were with that day, we were following him and going along. And he says, now turn around and look behind you. This is one of my favorite views of the entire trip. Well, if he hadn't said, turn around and look behind you, I think probably it wouldn't just be me. I think most of us would have missed that. So every now and then just turn around and look over your shoulders. What's back there? Whole different perspective.
Yeah. Really, it truly can be.
Yeah. Just a few more of these shots here. This is an interesting one again.
Yeah. So when I travel for photography, like on a photography tour or workshop, I usually bring a small tripod. And that's because of shots like this. You can't really get this with your phone. There might be some apps that are newer that might allow for something, but even though it is not focused, I think everybody knows what that red streak is in the foreground. I mean, if you're in London, it's St. Paul's Cathedral. It's getting towards twilight. Sun was starting to get low, so the light was nice and soft. So time of day is really important. And then I set my camera on a tripod, and so when that bus came by, I let the shutter be open for, I don't know, half a second or something like that, and it just blurred out. But that's a red bus. You know
you're in London, and the double decker. I mean, they're famous. They're just iconic there. You just know.
And the taxi there as well. So we shot this with some clients of mine. We were all set up there to get this, and then it got later. So time of day, if you can swing it, is really important. I think there's some more shots that you've got that'll really illustrate time of day, because when you're on your tours, and this is just the reality of, especially in Europe in the summer, boy, it is daytime all day. The sun is up early and it goes down very late. And most of the time that light can be really, really brutal.
Here's one that Paris. I think the light is.
Well, yeah, this one was partly cloudy, but again, I used a dark filter on my camera lens and a tripod, so that this was about a 2.5 minute long photo.
Really?
I was on the bridge. Notice how I framed it. The subject is this, the sculptor, the cherub, holding the torch. There's the background is the Eiffel Tower. That you're on that bridge in Paris. But what happens if you look at the water So there's two things that happened because this was such a slow shutter speed. 2 minutes is a long time to be waiting around
Huge.
taking a
Yeah.
picture, right? Um, you don't see any people. Maybe a few down here that are sitting. You can see them sitting down there on the left side at the cafe
Mhm.
because they're sitting still. But the water is absolutely smooth. There's no ripples on it, right? That's because they've all gotten blurred out. It's all gotten blurred out. And then the clouds make patterns and they move across the sky, which creates a unique look as well. So again, you're in Paris. There's the Eiffel Tower. There's the famous bridge, but it's a different kind of picture. And this was taken right in the middle of the day. So
Wow.
it worked out.
That is cool. I would have thought that was, later in the day. Here's another one. Now, this is obviously not daytime. It's late in the
No,
day.
this is Belfast, believe it or not, which is an excellent city to visit if you're ever, most people don't think about Northern Ireland, but if you go to Northern Ireland, this is like the city hall equivalent building, government building. And my favorite time to take the pictures that will absolutely impress your friends isn't at night. It's actually about 30 minutes after sunset. It's not dark yet. There's still light. You still might need to use a tripod, but the sky goes midnight blue. And when you come back with the photos, especially when the buildings get lit up, whether it's a building like this or a castle or whatever, or even just office buildings like in, skyscrapers, it's a completely different look. And everyone will think that you're just some kind of amazing photographer. It's all about being there. And this window of time lasts about 10 or 15 minutes. And then it starts getting dark. And at that point, everything in the sky is black and it's just not the same kind of photo.
Cool. And here's another shot that I thought was really interesting. Where that London?
No, this is
No.
actually no, actually not. This is the top in the clock tower of the Musée d'Orsay in Paris. You go all the way up to the top, they have a cafe, and this is the inside where they have the clock. It used to be a train station, that museum. It's one of my favorite museums in Paris. It's where all the impressionist art is.
Oh,
So
my
this is just
favorite as
looking
well.
out. It's looking out at the Seine, and there you are. That's I think some of those buildings are part of the Louvre across the street, and it was just a unique view. So it's Paris, but I've got this dominant, clearly where I've used this clock to frame the image.
That is just really, and this is another cool shot.
Yes, the Place du Concorde again in Paris. Again, this is another one of those very long exposures. And what I did was had my camera on a tripod. I stuck it right up at the edge, the lip of this fountain, so that the fountain's water would be the entire foreground. You could do this with a phone. You could get the same shot. It just wouldn't have the 2 minute long exposure.
Yeah.
So none of the I tried to remove by changing my position as many of the distracting elements as I could. Obviously, I couldn't get rid of that bus there on the left side. It was parked. But again, you see those clouds moving through the sky. This is again 2.5 or so minutes worth of exposure.
Gorgeous, just gorgeous. Uh, this I thought what was really, you've picked just one subject. I'm sure there were how many there that you could have focused on. You just picked one out.
Oh yeah, this was at the changing of the horse
Yeah.
guards in London, and we went there, and you can see what's kind of cool is um, I deliberately set this with the exposure and adjusted it so that background behind him was just very dark. I wanted to make it dark. I didn't want it to be distracting. And then you can see reflected in his breastplate there and his armor, the buildings across the way. And
Yes.
you're getting his expression trying to be stoic and the whole thing.
That is really cool. And here we've got you.
Yeah.
And
My sister probably took this picture when I was visiting her.
Ireland.
This is in Northern Ireland. Yep. This was back in 2016, a while ago. But the thing here, and this is an important thing. If you're taking pictures of people, I can't tell you how many times uh, you just keep backing up, backing up. I want the widest possible shot. You don't need your feet in the picture. If you're taking a picture of you or your spouse or your partner or your group and your friends, the picture's about them. Get closer or use a longer, zoom in or whatever. And if the background's a little bit soft, who the heck cares? You can still tell I'm on the the
Yeah.
North Sea coast here. It doesn't have to be sharp from back to front.
So that's a good tip for how to get better photos of family and friends. Zoom in and get pictures of
Yeah, because it's their
face.
face that you want to be. It's you don't need their toes.
Yes, you don't, and you don't need to see, how their slacks fit or whatever.
Exactly.
Get their face, get their expressions.
Hmm.
Um,
And
what?
another thing too, I see this all the time with people either taking pictures of their friends or like with even if you're just doing a selfie, right? I mean, we all do this. If there's a window behind you, turn around and face it so that the light hits you and fills the light. I took these wonderful portraits of some of the travel network folks on Queen Mary. They were like, "Well, you're a photographer. Can you take my picture?" And of course, they hand me their phone, so it's not like it's going to be anything special, right? First thing I said was, "We're going to go walk over here to the window, so that everything is behind you is the inside of the ship, and this light is going to hit your face,
Oh,
and you don't
lovely.
get those. Otherwise, you just get this blown out, backlit, shadow, and then you're talking. You need flashes and all kinds of
So
stuff
go
that you're
to the
probably not doing.
lights.
Go look into the light. Yes. Go stand in front of the window and let that illuminate you or your subject or whoever.
Outstanding. What about any? So that gives me, just looking at that again, that gives me uh, just some insight on getting those better pictures. What about, are there any like little tricks, or is there, are any apps that you could recommend for smartphone photography? Do you have
Yeah,
anything that you could
absolutely. Now, some of this will
recommend?
depend on your phone, what it can do in its own camera, the built-in camera. The higher end phones tend to have more features just built into them.
Hmm.
Otherwise, apps. But if there was one feature that you should find in your phone, well, there's two actually that I like. The first one is just a setting. If you go into your phone setting and you find the camera settings, see
Hmm.
if it has a grid. See if there's a little button that says turn on the grid. And it will show usually a 3x3 rectangular grid. And this will help you do a couple things. It'll help you frame horizons more level, but it also has the intersection points, so a 3x3 grid, there's going to be 9 boxes. And those corners, we call that the rule of thirds. And those are where you want to put your subject. If you go back to that picture of me for just a second, Pat,
Sure.
let's
You're
look at
not
this.
you're not centered.
I am not centered in this picture. So if you were to draw a 3x3 grid, I'm kind of like along that left hand third, a line a third of the way in from the left. So I'm there. You can still see the background, although it's a little bit out of focus because it's a little soft. Although this is probably a phone picture, I can't imagine it was but that's fine. So we've got the light, we've got the background, which is slightly soft, and I'm not square in the middle. And the horizon is also kind of, if you look at that, it's also a little bit above the center line.
Hmm.
So I like to put horizons either on the bottom third or the top third. And really the decision for that is there something interesting in the foreground, in which case I might put the horizon a little higher in the frame, or is the sky what's going on, and in which case I'll make the foreground quite small and make the picture about the sky and the other objects. There's nothing like having a gigantic field of grass of just nothing but blank empty space, to be boring in your foreground when you could just tilt your camera up a little bit
A
and
whole
just make it
different
a thin
perspective.
strip of green. Right, exactly. So the other
Excellent.
thing on your phone that you should look for, and most phones have it these days, no matter how fancy or not, is that thing called portrait mode. Many
Okay.
phones have it. When you have your
I had
options
no
on
I
your phone.
I've got it. I know
Yeah.
I do.
And here's the thing. depending on your phone, this is what gives you the effect of using a portrait lens, like a wide aperture with that soft background. Now it fakes it. It does it using computational stuff, but it works pretty well. And you can even adjust sometimes the amount of blur. You can set that out, like a virtual camera f-stop. You can just slide it around to change the setting. But here's the thing: your camera most of the time will find faces automatically, but you can use portrait mode for just about anything. Just tap the phone and say, I want to take a picture of this flower. And if it finds, you might have to stand back a little bit, and it will blur the background. And just try it. And if it doesn't work, who cares? You tried.
Yeah.
It doesn't
I mean,
matter.
it's not like the old days where you're wasting film.
Exactly. And every shot costs you $1.35. Yeah, this is very doable. So a grid line in your camera and portrait mode. And then if there was one app I would recommend that everybody should have, it's from Google. It works on iPhones and Android phones. It's called Snapseed. 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 It's free, and it will just allow you to do some basic retouching, adjusting it, smooth skin, uh, create some effects, make things look real vintage and retro if you're into that thing. But it's the one app I would recommend.
Wow,
It's
that
not
is
a gimmick
so
app. It's a good app.
wow. And so let me see. Uh, just just for your own favorites, Jason. If
Mhm.
you're out traveling, what are your favorite things to shoot? Is it landscapes? Is it people? Is it uh, what
Well,
really?
it depends on where I'm at, of course.
Mhm.
If I had my pick to do any kind of photography anytime, I would be shooting wildlife somewhere. That would be ideal for me. But when I'm traveling, I like doors and windows, and I don't like a lot of people in my shots, although sometimes, that's just the way it is. You have to embrace it. I'm not really a person photographer. I like going in. We went into Dubrovnik really early before the crowd showed up, and that famous steps where they
Oh
did
yeah.
a scene from Game of Thrones, it was empty. There was nobody on it. It was
Wow.
glorious. I took a picture of it, and there's nobody here. So I like doing that. I love old architecture. I could do doors and windows in places like Ireland and Paris and all day long. And I love, so those are the things that I like doing. I like the close-ups. I like finding things that aren't just the everybody else's picture. In other words, if I could buy it on a postcard, I don't necessarily want that. I'm not saying I won't take it, but I want to find the things that go with the postcard shot too, to
Okay, like
complement it.
you've got to take the picture of the Eiffel Tower, that view that you see on all the postcards. But once you've got that, then we can look at the real fun stuff.
Right, right. There's boxes that you're going to check, but you can check them in different ways.
Well, excellent, Jason. This has been fascinating. I've learned some things, and I am going to try to put some of them in practice. Now, folks, if you are regular listeners, and I hope you are, I hope you check in with us every week. You will know that our live viewers get the extra perk of a drawing. We give some kind of a merchandise away, usually a travel related merchandise of some kind or other, every single week for our live listeners only. And this week I'm doing something that is related to our topic. We are doing a mag stick selfie stick tripod giveaway. And if you are watching us, this is so cool. And frankly, this is more costly than most of the stuff I give away because I figured this is good. We're going to get some a good many views on this week's topic. So I'm sweetening the pot a bit, and so I'm giving this away tonight to somebody. If you're watching live only, I want you to enter the word vacation photos in the comments box right now, and we will be drawing someone's name to win this really cool. Now, I'll probably get in touch with you after we have a winner, because I want to make sure that what we send you is actually compatible with the phone that you have. So I'll want to know what phone you have, so I make sure that we match up the right product for your phone. They're not always totally interchangeable, so we're going to do that. So I think that's it for us, folks. Jason, this has been fascinating. I so enjoyed this. And I really predict that this is going to be perpetually popular on our YouTube station, that we're going to get lots and lots of views on this. Folks, I really appreciate it. And Jason, you are on, you are part of the Dancing Moon travel team. And if people want to get in touch with you, tell us real fast if they want to book something, or if I've got your this running along here, but
That will work.
That will work.
That will work. And then if they
can.
want to do something, my website for photography is luminescentphoto.com, and they can go there.
And if they really want to learn, you do several trips a year where you're instructing and helping
absolutely
people really learn the craft of photography. So, and I can tell you, Jason has an amazing following, and there are a lot of people in his group that will follow him and have proved that they will follow him almost anywhere.
To the end of the world, yeah.
To the end of the world. We're trying to take them there. So, folks, if you like Jason, Jason could book almost anything out there for you. If you want to do a river cruise, if you want to do a photography trip of some kind, or you just want to book a regular old Caribbean cruise, or go to Alaska or whatever, Jason can help you with those trips too. So don't hesitate.
Pleasure.
Don't hesitate to reach out to him. You will love working with him. Jason, thank you for joining us this evening. I know this is going to be so popular, and always a pleasure to have you on. Folks, we'll see you next week for another episode of Let's Talk Travel.